Hey, good morning. It's a beautiful day over at Mount Hood. A beautiful day over at Mount Hood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Hi, boys and girls. Can you say testing? I knew you could. Yes, that's not too hard. Today I'm going to cover a little bit more about some testing, different kinds of tests, pros and cons, and some examples of what they are. So that'll get us all set up for the morning and having a good week. I hope you had a good weekend. I did. So there's two basic kinds of tests that we talk about: objective and subjective. Objective tests are tests that have specific answer choices and measurements and pretty clear-cut answers, easily scored, such as a agree, disagree, true, false, multiple choice kind of questionnaire survey, for example. And some tests are of this sort. The advantage of these is that they are quick. They give you some data that are very easy to score. You can say, I got a 7 out of 10 on the depression scale. Disadvantage, you can fake these. Do you realize, boys and girls, sometimes people aren't honest? We should all try to be honest in the world, I think. So, disadvantage is you can fake them. So, an example here, the MMPI-2. That is a personality test that asks questions about depression, anxiety, physical symptoms, social introversion or being extroverted. Maybe questions such as, I have had problems with alcohol, or I hear things that other people don't hear, or people are out to get me. So there are a variety of questions on this, and you mark them true, false, and it's easy to score. But if you want to make it look like you have a lot more problems than is true, you could do that as well. So that's a drawback. All of these have their pros and cons. Subjective tests are the other. Subjective tests. These tests are harder to score, and they may give somebody a picture to look at or something to draw, and they're harder to interpret. That is a drawback. Harder to score, harder to interpret. Advantage, harder to fake. It's not quite clear what the tester is looking for, so that's an advantage of these. An example here is a projective test. A projective test shows something that's not very clear, and it asks the person to maybe make up a story, finish a sentence, and it tells something about the person. So it gives you a lot more information, but it's harder to make sense out of. So pros and cons. Let me give you some examples. Can you say Rorschach? That's a little trickier, but I'm pretty sure you could. Ink blot test. The famous ink blot test is called the Rorschach. I should spell that out for you. Let's see if I can do that here. It's a little Rorschach. R-O-R-S-C-H-A-C-H. Rorschach was from Switzerland. It's a Swiss-German kind of name. So what might this be? It's not very clear cut. So you can look at it like this, see something different. So some people see an animal, a head, a mask, an animal being reflected in the water. Those are some things that people sometimes see. Here's another Rorschach card. What might this be? Well, boys and girls, it could be many different things. There isn't a wrong or right answer. And that's what we call a projective test, because the stimulus card of the test is unclear and somewhat vague, and people project onto that like a projector their personality, their strengths and weaknesses and tendencies. And it takes some interpretation, which makes it a little trickier. but an advantage is it gives you a lot more information. There's another test that we use sometimes for children. We give them pictures and ask them to tell a story. So for example, make up a story about this. What's happening? What are the people feeling and thinking? How does it end? How about another card? Boys and girls, make up a story about this one. Common theme is there's a problem of some sort and the family is discussing it. This test is called the Roberts Apperception Test for Children. It's based on a thematic apperception test, which was an older one for adults. And this one had children filling out, actually answering questions. Mr. Rogers made a goof, but I can do that because I'm human, just like you. So those are two kinds of projective tests. There's also something that we use called a sentence completion test is another common one. So finish this sentence. Today I am going to blank, or my family blank. The biggest problem in my life is, what I like best is, people are. Those are examples of sentence completion. You could have many choices, so you can't score it very easily, not like true, false, or 1 to 5, but it gives you a lot more information. So the answer is projecting part of the person's personality, and we can do this for children or adults. With children, sometimes I have created something I call these story completion, where we take turns making a story. So I might start out saying something like, once upon a time, there was an animal. It was and I asked the child, you fill it in. It was a horse. Okay, the horse's name was, and then I asked the child to fill in the blank, and we go from there. One day the horse woke up and things were not so good. Blank. And then the child comes up with something. Children are very good with that kind of thing. Adults, we have a little bit more concerns about how it looks. Children are a little easier to do that with, so that works with them. These are just some examples of objective, projective, subjective testing, the pros and cons, and these are common things that psychologists use when testing personality. Intelligence testing is another whole thing. Anyways, I hope you've had a good time this morning, and there's some questions for you to answer on the worksheet, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.